Okay, folks, welcome back to today's edition of Notre Dame Daily. Apologies for not being with you yesterday. Got the family in town from Texas, so my little one has been running rampant the last couple of days, just jacked up to have grandma and auntie in town. But nonetheless, we are closer and closer to August 31, Notre Dame, number 6, Miami, number 10, Sunday night down in South Beach. And ahead of that, Notre Dame, as you probably saw, released its first depth chart ahead of that 6v10 matchup. And while there aren't too many surprises, there are some interesting areas to analyze. First off, as we knew, the defense is absolutely loaded. Bryce Young, who Marcus Freeman sent in a recent presser, continues to impress, is listed as DE1. Boubacar Traore and Junior Tuialamaka go 1-2 at the Viper position. But here's perhaps the best story and the greatest feel-good news from that Viper position. Yeah, it's great to have Traore firing on all cylinders. We know what Tuialamaka did last season. Jordan Botelho is also on the depth chart at Viper. He was given the green light by the coaching staff. So what does that mean? We're going to see him Sunday night back from injury, which is great news all around. Yes, he played well before going down last season, and that is obviously a big priority here. But you just feel great for the young man who worked his ass off to get back on the field, and he's pretty ahead of schedule here to be ready for this opener. So you got another veteran presence on a defense that had plenty of it already, sprinkled in with good young talent and developing talent. It's going to be fun to watch, but having Jordan Botelho back works on so many different levels, folks. Yes, productivity, but being a leader and a voice on the field and in the locker room, it's absolutely huge. Up front on that D-line, Jason Onye, Gabe Rubio, 1-2, listed collectively at the defensive tackle position. Freshman Cole Mullins slots in right behind them. You got in the secondary, I know this was a topic of conversation. What were you going to do with the boundary and the field safeties? Well, we know Schuler sits back there at the top. Luke Talich behind him. Jalen Stroman atop the field position ahead of Tay Johnson and Ethan Long, both freshmen. We know how great Johnson's been over the offseason and through fall camp. You're going to see him. You'll see Long as well. But this is the trust here in the transfer Stroman, who sits atop that depth chart, at least for now, going into the Miami game. But all are going to play a role. Offensively, you got 4 guys on the depth chart at running back. Nolan James earns RB4 duties behind that lethal trio of Love, Price, Williams. Look, when you talk about Nolan James, he's the future once J. Love and Jadarian move on to Sundays. We know that, and you sprinkle him there with Aeneas Williams. That's a great future Notre Dame maintains in the backfield after this phenomenal 1-2 punch of Love and Price. More on them momentarily. Move on to playing in the NFL. You talk about the tight end position. Eli Raritan, he's been all the chat through fall camp, how great he's looked, coming off a 16-game season a year ago. The health is there. Ty Washington listed behind him as the tight end too, as is Jack Larson, the freshman. So on that positional grouping, and we see this in a couple of areas, it's Ty Washington as TE2 or Jack Larson right behind Eli Raritan. Perhaps a little unknown there, but you know what you have in the athletic ability and down the field, in the seam of the field, and Eli Raritan as well, just a special athlete. On the O-line, the expected left to right group features Knapp at left tackle, Schrouth at left guard, Craig at center, Emil Wagner at right tackle. We knew that. Gerby Lambert or Sullivan Absher as right guard is how it reads on the depth chart. Either way, we'll see a good amount of both the 6'7", 335-pound Lambert as well as the 6'8", 327-pounder in Absher. It's a good news for Notre Dame. I know there's a big chunk of the fan base very high on Gerby Lambert. You know the type of offseason I've been talking about a lot that Sullivan Absher had going into camp. He was probably the favorite for the job going in, but Lambert now healthy after a spring injury. He's ready to roll. So this is great news for Notre Dame with probably the nation's best offensive line. And you got 2 worthy starting right guards, over 650 pounds combined. That's good stuff. A 6'7", 6'8", 320 plus for both of them. Next to a guy like Emil Wagner, that's a quarterback's dream. And of course, we know we're going to have a first-time starter in CJ Carr with Kenny Minchey behind him. The special teams unit, I didn't find this too surprising. Maybe in the one area, the return game in a second. Marcello Diomede is going to handle kickoffs. Noah Burnett, the transfer from UNC. The place kicker, James Rendell, who will actually be my spotlight player tomorrow, will be the punter. And Tyler Buckner will be the holder. He's also QB3 on the depth chart. Your kick returners. Some people will love this. Some people are not going to be too happy about it. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price will be back there on kickoffs. Jordan Faison and Will Pauling, very active on the depth chart at the wide receiver position as well, will handle punt return duties. A lot of people don't like to see their feature backs working on special teams due to injury. But again, you want to have your best playmakers on the field at all times. And that is the mindset there for this Notre Dame coaching staff with Jay Love and Jadarian Price. You know what you have in the backfield. And now you'll see him a little bit more on special teams. So to me, I think it's solid. We're going to learn a lot more about Notre Dame, obviously, as the season goes along. We'll get our first look at what this group looks like Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time kick against the number 10 ranked Miami Hurricanes, who have their own things to weed out. Carson Beck in a new offense as he transfers over from Georgia, going up against an absolutely loaded and ferocious Notre Dame defense. The depth chart doesn't change anything there. This Notre Dame defense is deep from top to bottom. And again, I think the emergence here of Bryce Young, who Marcus Freeman's been very high on, the emergence of Boubacar Traore, you'll see guys like Cree Thomas and Dallas Golden, the true freshmen, who are on the depth chart at corner. Ethan Long in that secondary as well. So some of the young guys moving their way up are going to get significant playing time here. These are great signs for Notre Dame ahead of, outside of that Clemson-LSU game in a 4-9 matchup. This Notre Dame-Miami game could very well be the biggest game of week one here. So you got 4-9, Clemson-LSU, 6-10, Notre Dame-Miami. It's going to be fun. That's a great way to start an official week one after what we saw last week with the game in Ireland. So everything looks good. All systems go here for Notre Dame, and that's what you want. And again, I can't stress it enough. It is absolutely great, and I'll be as excited as most of you to have Jordan Botelho back in the fold for the Irish. Speaking of another guy that massive expectations for and a big part of this depth chart, Gabe Rubio is our spotlight player, one of the best run stoppers on the team. That's not an opinion, it's a fact. He gives the Irish just an incredible force up front, and as we know, he's not alone. You got the likes of Donovan Hines and Jason Onye in that rotation with him on the depth chart, and with ferocious ends like Tui Alamaka, Burnham, Bryce Young heavily involved. This section of the Notre Dame defensive depth chart is, folks, it's legitimately, you talk about the early part of the season, 8-9 players deep. A lot of teams don't have that reliability. The blue and gold do. Rubio could very well be viewed, however, as something of an anchor. The veteran lineman's played in 33 games to this point in his career, so his experience and leadership, which is another reason it's great to have guys like Jordan Botelho back, are going to serve as incredible assets for this entire Irish group, not just the specific positional group. Accrued 24 tackles last season, 1 sack that came in the win against USC to end the regular season. And across his first 3 campaigns in South Bend, St. Louis native has 25 run stops, an area of his game that when you watch him really pops and stands out for you. Now, you talk about being able to stop the run, and the Notre Dame schedule, I think, when you break it down, as I've started to do here, and we'll finish it out this week, I think it's a little more difficult than some people want to admit. But when you talk about some of the backs that Notre Dame's going to see this season, you got Mark Fletcher Jr. from Miami, Mike Washington Sr. from Arkansas, Texas A&M's Le'Veon Moss, we know him, and Pittsburgh's Desmond Reed, who may be one of the best 5 backs in all of America. Having a guy like Gabe Rubio, who was so instrumental in your run defense, is huge. And playing alongside Onye on the interior, that 1-2 combo with Rubio coming in and imposing 6'5", 325, and Onye at 6'5", 300, this should allow for consistent run stuffing while giving Notre Dame edge rushers opportunity to create chaos from the outside, which is obviously a big deal. With a major leadership role on his plate and the expectation for consistent productivity, keep your eyes on big number 97 this season. I think Gabe Rubio is going to be a massive part of the success, not just of the Notre Dame D-line, but for Chris Ash in his first season, along with Mike Mickens, for this Notre Dame defense as a whole. He's a big part of it, and it is a big deal. So number 97, keep your eye out. He's going to be a massive part of things. Speaking of that schedule, we'll get into Games 7 and 8 today. Game 7, USC, Saturday, October 18th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, NBC, under the lights, Notre Dame Stadium. Like for Marcus Freeman, it's year 4 for USC head coach Lincoln Riley, and he's got big expectations out there on the West Coast, which coincides with USC's second go-round now in the Big Ten. Quarterback Jaden Mayava, we saw him last year, is now the full-time leader under center. Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane do give him really good talent on the outside. So that will be a fun matchup when Notre Dame and USC meet. It's the Irish corners, Moore and Gray, against guys like Lane and Lemon. I think that's going to be really, when we talk about breaking down the tape and a couple of things you might be looking for in each and every game, that matchup on the outside when the Irish and Trojans meet in South Bend late October is going to be it. Now, you got USC's offensive line, Alani Noah, Elijah Page, should also be much improved, led by those guys. And that's obviously going to help a rushing attack that had great talent the last couple of years, but in total was outside the top 80 in yards per game last season. Brian Jackson is going to show to the load. He's back. And you got a good-looking kid in Eli Sanders who comes over to New Mexico, and it'll be a nice compliment for Riley to Brian Jackson. You want to see them, if you're a Trojan fan, continue a lot of the positives the last couple of seasons that they got from Marshawn Lloyd and Woody Marks. Defensively, you got Rob Ryan, first-year linebacker coach. He's got a group that has incredible athleticism, but it's unproven. So you talk about that Notre Dame tight end game, Eli Rara and Ty Washington, and obviously the backfield. We can call it a four-headed monster because I think there's a lot of people like me who are excited to see now with Kedron Young out of the picture with that unfortunate injury, what Nolan James bring. There's another matchup there, that Notre Dame tight end group and the backfield against athletic yet unproven USC linebackers. It's going to be interesting. You might even say five deep, depending on how Notre Dame continues to use Jabron Payne. This is a USC team also on the back end that have a few unknowns. Bishop Fitzgerald comes in from NC State. DJ Harvey from down the road in San Jose State. They're going to look to carry the load in that USC secondary, and it is the type of matchup. You talk about the tight end position for Notre Dame. You might be able to release tight end Eli Raritan in a game like this, especially, again, going up against unproven and untested, but by this time they'll be 6-7 games in, but a second and third level defense in USC that hasn't had that much time to mesh. They did add bulk up front, which was a major goal of the offseason for Lincoln Riley. He was not quiet about that. And now you just got to see how it pans out early on for USC, which is, again, a monster season filled with CFP expectations out there in Cali. And a showdown under the lights with the Irish in South Bend is a great stage. And look, if both teams are on point leading up to the contest, we could very well have ourselves a top 10 showdown come October 18th. We've seen that before. And wouldn't it be fun to see it once again? I have no love for the Trojans, believe me, but there is talent there on this team, and if both teams are clicking coming in, I mean, it's going to be must-see TV. It generally is with two hated rivals playing for the Shillelagh, but if you've got both firing at the top of their games, we're looking at a top 10 primetime Saturday night, Notre Dame Stadium, touchdown Jesus, the Dome, the works, October 18th. It could be fun, and it is not out of the question. A week after the Trojans, 2 weeks I should say, Notre Dame goes USC bye, and then they kick off the month of November on Saturday, November 1st. The time and the network of this game to still be released, but it's the 8th game of the season at Boston College. The Holy War resumes for the first time since the Irish stomped BC, 44-0 in South Bend during the 22 campaign. Notre Dame has won 9 straight in the series with Boston College, and they'll look to make it 10 for their last 10 November 1 in Chestnut Hill. It'll be a fun one. BC averaged just over 28 points a game offensively last season, posted just under 200 yards passing and nearly 170 yards rushing per contest. So they're going to look to improve upon both of those numbers coming off a 7-6 campaign. This is a Boston College team that many of you remember go back a year ago. They opened their season with a 28-13 beatdown of then number 10 Florida State, which vaulted BC into the rankings. The rest was history for Florida State. It was the worst season in program history. A close loss to number 6 Mizzou would follow. And while BC did have some nice wins over Michigan State, Syracuse, UNC, and Pitt, they really couldn't find any consistency, a la that 7-6 record, including the bowl game. Red zone scoring issues for BC were prominent, and they were a huge part of the problem. That is probably the main focal point if you're talking about this. The Boston College contingent will probably agree that second-year head coach Bill O'Brien is undoubtedly looking to clean up. You're going to have senior Grayson James under center. Lewis Bond, Reed Harris, tight end Jeremiah Franklin will be his primary targets, the 2 wide receivers and the tight end respectively. You talk about this BC defense, they'll be able to get after it. Edges Contavious Hudgens and Jason Flint should be steady rocks there from a productivity standpoint. This is a Boston College defense that last year surrendered 25 plus points on 5 different occasions. You got to slow that down. This is a team that is not devoid of talent, and I think that 7-6 mark a year ago, you couple with some games defensively where they were lackadaisical, and then those aforementioned red zone issues cost him more than a couple of victories. On the back end this year, you got Max Tucker and Amari Jackson expected to start at corner. They give you good speed, Carter Davis, KP Price, and you got a good-looking freshman in Omarion Davis rotating in the third level at safety for playing time. So this is a tall task for Boston College. But when you look at their schedule, they've got games against Notre Dame, Clemson, and SMU. All right, 3 college football playoff teams from a year ago. But for BC, they get Notre Dame, Clemson, and SMU all at Alumni Stadium at home. For Notre Dame, this is certainly not a team you want to be jerking around with and taking lightly. But Notre Dame's ability to run the football and shut down the Boston College run game on the other side of the line should be able to develop in this one, you would think. Now, listen, we're talking about a game that's going to take place, Notre Dame's 8th game of the season, November 1st. Things change. Look, again, I'll use the example of Florida State. No one saw that coming a year ago. You didn't have to be a believer in Florida State. Nobody thought they were going to be the dumpster fire that they were, so things do change. Notre Dame went down to NIU and then ran the table and made it to the national championship game. So this is all basically prognostication, just the preseason preview of these teams. It could change one way or the other. We traditionally know that we've had more than our fair share of very good matchups in this holy war between Notre Dame and Boston College. So with all of these games, as is the case, 25-26 season, we shall see. So you got USC, Boston College. I will continue to hammer away at the schedule tomorrow. Before I go, I want to make good note. Being a lifelong New York Giant fan, a diehard one at that, Bo Collins makes the Giants' opening roster depth chart. He will be one of 6 wide receivers playing for the Giants when they open the season week 1 against the Washington Commanders. So that is a big deal for Bo Collins making that team with the New York Giants. So congratulations to him. I hope you all have a great rest of yours. I'll talk to you all tomorrow, same time, same place. And as always, go Irish.